KTN News. Get the whole story.
Slightly more than 2 days to go before the mass voter registration comes to an end, and all indications are the IEBC will not even have achieved a quarter of the new numbers they had projected. A rather sad state of affairs for the more than 4 million potential voters who look set to be locked out of the decision-making process. Meanwhile, 282 days to the August 9, 2022 general election, the political field is getting busier, and President Uhuru Kenyatta is not looking to sit this one out. Elsewhere, the One Kenya Alliance appears to have been jolted into action, with the principles now more visible on the campaign trail. Plus, a storm is brewing over a planned merger between Jubilee and ODM in a possible pre-election coalition pact. How will this one play out? This is Inside Politics. My name is FRED INDIMULI. At KTN News, you can interact with us on Twitter. That's our Twitter handle. Use the hashtag Inside Politics. My Twitter handle is at FRED INDIMULI. Let's start off with the top story, where President Uhuru Kenyatta has recently left Kenyans guessing on his preferred successor as the 2022 polls draw near. It is increasingly getting clearer that President Kenyatta will be involved in his succession, sending signals of a possibility of endorsing another candidate other than his deputy William Ruto. Kenyatta on Friday, while on a stopover in Ruiru Town, Kiambu County, called on Kenyans not to elect a thief, as they would drain his legacy and that of former President Mwai Kibaki. Could the president have started his succession plan already? Let's interrogate this report by Daniel Kariuki.
President Uhuru Kenyatta Friday at Ruiru Town, just minutes after he presided over Kenya Prison's cadet pass-out parade, warning Kenyans on voting for their next president.
Musalia togoria na kuhoreria bururi na megutuma andu maiguithanie na megutuma tuthie na mbere na mawira maria twambirĩirie na nigetha tutikeonerie gita bururi tucokete kuria tumite. President
Kenyatta once again seen to be taking a jab at his deputy William Ruto over his early campaigns.
Na nĩkĩraigua kiuga atĩrĩrĩ maũndũ ma siasa nĩ mariũka. Aya andu maratengera matengerete ri nikwenda gũciaria icio batũrĩa mũnene ri batũrĩa mũnene nĩ atĩ bũrũri ũkorwo wĩna thayũ mũtigokeaga mũkerwo atĩ wahana ũyũ wahana ũyũ nĩkĩ aca bũrũri-inĩ witũ ithuothe na wona watoga arĩa mabaga gũtogerwo.
As Kenyatta spoke in his backyard, One Kenya Alliance was officially launching their campaigns in Kakamega County, with the principals insisting they were united no matter phone calls from various quarters.
Mambo ya watu kushurutishwa ama watu kupigiwa simu usiku na kuambiwa lazima uende pale ama pale.
But it is reports making rounds that the president could be planning to meet a section of the presidential contenders, among them the OKA coalition principals on the 2022 succession race, that have ruffled feathers across the political divide. Sources close to KTN say the president could be planning to throw his last jab as he seeks to unite the OKA principals and Azimio la Umoja with similar meeting that he hosted in Mombasa. However, OKA principals have dismissed any plan to compel them to support Raila Odinga.
Watu wamekuwa na tabia ya kujaribu kushurutisha ati huyu ndio tunamlazimisha mchukue. Mimi nataka niseme mtakubali kulazimishiwa kiongozi yeyote?
Tokeni kwa bedroom mara moja. You are wasting time kwa bedroom. Mikutano ya boardroom from today funga.
I'm happy with the activities of the Prime Minister Raila Odinga and also William Ruto, who have actually gone out of their comfort zone to go and look for votes. That is a trend that we want to see. If you want to vie as a president of the Republic of Kenya, the votes are gotten from the people.
The OKA is this Sunday headed to Thika in Kiambu County to popularize their bid. The latest happenings and statements by President Kenyatta are clear indication that he may be involved in his succession, unlike his predecessor, while indicating DP Ruto could not be his preferred candidate. The president has at the same time in recent weeks been seeking to consolidate the already divided Mount Kenya region, Kenyatta resorting to using his vernacular language to unite the region and to stamp his authority as the political head of the region. The president has avoided Kiswahili or English whenever he is addressing his natives, as he emphasizes his points while hitting out at DP Ruto and his lieutenants, Kenyatta in Kikuyu language, telling locals to be careful. All eyes on President Kenyatta in the coming days. Daniel Kariuki, KTN News.
Yes, slightly more than 9 months from today, we will be going to the polls. And yes, decisions have to be made. Joining us on the panel this morning on Inside Politics, we are lucky and privileged to have Dismas Mokua, political risk analyst, Duke of Mosocho. Good morning, karibu sana to Inside Politics. It's good to have you in studio.
Thank you very much.
We also have next to Bwana Dismas Mokua, Dennis Ntumbi, political analyst. Karibu sana, Dennis.
Thank you so much, Fred.
Joining us via Zoom, we have Hesbon Owila, governance expert. Hesbon, can you hear us? Good morning.
Good morning. I can hear you loud and clear, and thank you very much, Fred.
Karibu sana. And last but not least, Mark Bichachi, communication strategist, also joining us in studio. Good morning, Mark. Karibu.
Good morning.
Now, of course, a lot can be said about the president's comments, especially this past few days. I do not know why, and I do not understand why there was a perception that the president should sit out his own succession, that he should let the politics play out. Is it really to be expected of any president to sit out his succession plan? Bwana Dismas, given that, we'll start with you, Dismas, given that he hopes to see that his legacy lives on beyond his regime.
President Kenyatta has indicated that President Kibaki left a very solid legacy after 10 years of leadership. And also President Kenyatta has said that he's going to leave another solid legacy of 10 years as the head of Kenya. Therefore, it means that it would be very naive for any Kenyan to imagine that President Kenyatta would be seated back at Gatundu or State House having a cup of coffee as political events unfold without any sort of interference or influence. In my view, it would be a very naive president to sit back and not influence the political processes, especially when you're talking about his successor. And the president has indicated times above number that Kenyans need to be very careful not to elect thugs and thieves into office. So under that scenario, then it would be really unacceptable. It would not be consistent with our national interest and public interest for the president to hand over Kenya to people he knows very well to be thugs, to people he knows very well to be thieves. And I guess that's the reason why he has to be very active. Okay. And the kind of support he's going to be giving, it will not be explicit, but it will be implicit. But an interesting thing is, Fred, after the president indicated that Kenyans must not elect thugs and thieves into office, it's only one camp of the entire political space which has come out with guns blazing. Yesterday, Aden Duale indicated that it was an insult to members of Jubilee for President Kenyatta to indicate that there are thieves and thugs within the political party. And as philosophers have said, would it be a case of the guilty ones running, or are they suspecting themselves? Okay.
Dennis, it is one thing for the president to be seen actively campaigning towards his succession, but it is totally different when he looks like he's going against his own deputy. Don't you think that probably that's the one reason that many people are probably not very comfortable with his involvement this time around?
Thank you very much, Fred, and good morning, viewers. I think this is a very high hypocrisy and deception. For you to suddenly realize that people are thieves when you're exiting out, when they have walked with you throughout your persecution journey, throughout ICC, they have done governance with you, they have fought with you, you boxed them out during your second term for reasons that are personal and have nothing to do with national governance. And then when you're exiting is when you realize that they are thieves because you possibly have other personal interest to pretend and to drive. Now, when we analyze the legacy of President Kibaki, we can both see the hard and the soft legacy. His sense of humor is a soft legacy. His hard legacy, we can see his signature project as Thika Road. We see during his time livelihoods were supported. SMEs rose up exponentially. We see again the rise of the dairy industry from hundreds into thousands. And we see many things that happened. The socio-economic status during Kibaki's reign was way up high. You know, the living standards were unquestionable. The economy was strong at the end of the day. What it is that I call the gross domestic happiness per homestead was stable and was stabilized. Even though we came from a backdrop of a civil disorder, Kibaki managed to stabilize our economy and the country was thriving. Enter the second term especially of President Uhuru Kenyatta. What is it that we can hold together as Kenyans as part of what it is, quote unquote, is calling his legacy? Where I would say, and many thousands and millions of Kenyans would agree with me, is that his legacy cannot be stolen because it is stacked well in foreign accounts. We can't get there. We don't have the passport to Swiss and other places at the end of the day. But whatever it is that he worked hard with the deputy president within the first term, okay. What was the projects for Kibaki that were furthered forth? Okay, Dennis. Yes. We need your questions answered, and I am answering them. I am answering them. You want to ask and answer the same as well. I am answering them. That is what I'm doing, Fred. Within the first term, we see the Big Four agenda that was thought through, processed, and executed together with the deputy president. The gains that he can claim are also the gains that the deputy president can claim. But the rot that we see within the second term is not any rot that the deputy president can claim because it has been fathered by him and Raila Odinga. So the assertion that he has a legacy or even that legacy can be stolen, perhaps from the precepts of private wealth. But truly speaking, we see the kind of decadence that happened with COVID funds. We see the economy has gone to the dogs. We see institutions that are independent within government, they are no longer independent. Education is in tatters. So truly, Fred, this is what I'll summarize. There is absolutely no legacy to defend or to be stolen other than his rise on personal wealth. And back to the issue of incumbent presidents seem to be active in their own succession. And of course, you've drawn parallels with the retired President Mwai Kibaki. And of course, Mwai Kibaki probably implicitly also drove his own succession. Bwana Hesbon Owila, do you think that probably the reason that people are complaining right now is that it appears to be that the president is against one particular candidate?
Well, I think the conclusions that people are making are because the president is sending very clear signals. And for me, it's not so much about the people that the president is referring to, as it is about the issues that the president is raising. Because there are two key things. One is that the president, as a private citizen in this country, has all the rights to support whoever he wants, as a private citizen, and we cannot take that away from him. And I think a number of people who have perceived the president to be having support that is not directed to them have continued saying that he only has one vote. But now, to understand that that one vote is important, you realize that the president has a clear, strong political clout. And I think this is something that we've seen in the past. It's only that President Uhuru Kenyatta is doing it differently. So with this serious political cloud, he has a very significant sway on the electorate. So he has a command on the electorate. So it goes beyond the one vote that people say the president has to the people who listen and believe in the direction that the president is taking. Then number 3 is the issue of public interest. And if you consistently look at what the president has done since he assumed power and was sworn in the second term, he talked about the big 4, which eventually morphed into 3 key things, the legacy 3. One was the big 4, number 2 was fighting corruption, and number 3 was uniting Kenyans. So those 3 key things, if you look at them in entirety, these are things that were benefiting Kenyans. And if the president even delivers 40% of these things, it is Kenyans who will benefit. So in the event that the president decided that for me to deliver these things and address the plight of Kenyans, I need to bring all politicians on board. And there was a handshake. And there are few politicians who felt disenfranchised. As Kenyans, we need to ask ourselves, why were they disenfranchised? Okay. If they were disenfranchised because there was a common good for Kenyans in this legacy 3, in fighting corruption, in uniting Kenyans, and delivering on the big 4, then we should focus on the issue. And that's why Dismas is talking about when the president says that don't elect thieves, when the president says that in my second term, I have delivered much more than I did in the first term, when the president says that I want to leave this country united, the people who are complaining should be evaluated on the basis of what have they contributed in the delivery of the big 4?
Okay.
What have they contributed in the unity of this country? And where is their stand on the fight against corruption? So if we look at this issue, we cannot say that the president should not support anyone. We should just ask ourselves, is it in our interest for the president to support a certain political formation? If it is, I think the Thumbis of this world will not stop Kenyans from voting along public interest.
And for the sake of balance, because I can see on Twitter we're being told that we have an imbalanced panel, and I can see the way it's going. Thumbi will give you one more chance. But before that, Mark Bichachi, a lot can be said about the style of politics of these 2 politicians, President Mwai Kibaki, the retired president, and President Uhuru Kenyatta. We cannot expect them to act the same way when it comes to their succession politics. They're totally different political animals. That must be argued.
Well, it must be argued that Uhuru Kenyatta is very different from Mwai Kibaki, and there's nothing within our laws and traditions of this country that stops him in any way from supporting a candidate of his choice. Indeed, it is expected that in 2022 he will vote, and that vote will not go to himself. Now, that said, there is also a global vision from which we can perceive this matter. Look at Barack Obama when he chose to take a back seat when Hillary Clinton was running against Donald Trump, under the assumption that Hillary had it in the bag, only for them to realize a bit too late that she did not have it in the bag. She didn't even have the bag at all. But look at 2020. Look at the campaign of 2020. Barack Obama was literally the campaign manager for Joe Biden. Why? Because when the threat is great, when what you are about to lose affects every single citizen, the healthcare and the welfare of the people, then it behooves any leader to understand that succession planning is part and parcel of leadership. Now, when we talk about succession, there is no one better to tell you about a man or a woman than anyone who's been married to them for more than 9 years, as the president has been married to the hip by the law to one William Ruto. Let me tell you, when Dennis tells me that William is a saint, and Uhuru, who has lived, talked, breathed the same air as William, tells me, be careful of thieves, I will trust Uhuru Kenyatta. Why would I trust Uhuru Kenyatta? And let me give...
But the president did not mention any names. We're just making very serious assumptions here.
But if you say he who smelt it dealt it, so the first person who complained about it, we know is the one who dealt it. So let us get to the facts. Number one, there was no Big Four agenda in the first term. The first term of President Kenyatta's presidency was the one with the hustler jets. It was the one with Galana Kulalu failing. NYS 1 and 2. Who was in charge? Who was pushing all the buttons? Yes, they will say, what about KEMSA? But the truth of the matter is there was more corruption in the first term. Now, by my good friend Dennis, kujichanganya migu, there was no Big Four agenda until the second term of the President Uhuru Kenyatta. This idea that somehow the first term was better is nonsensical. Okay. Look at how many dams are being built. Look at how many kilometers of road have been built. Look at the overpass being built right outside these windows we are looking at. It is a bold-faced lie. But my dear friends at home, let me say this. If you cannot choose someone who's suspected of theft to handle the funeral contribution for your grandfather when he dies, what is so wrong, what is so painful for Tanga when they are told that this country should not be led by thieves? Indeed. Which demon would agree and say that Kenya should be led by thieves?
Well, it should be assumed that, of course, we are supposed to elect people with high ethics, high ethical standards, and that is even indicated in our own constitution. Coming back to, and probably that's what the president was indicating when he said what he said. Coming back to Dennis Ntumbi, the deputy president himself, while addressing the gathering at Wanguru Stadium during Mashujaa Day celebrations, promised that, actually said he was the best placed to do what President Uhuru Kenyatta is asking, to carry on his legacy. Why then do you feel that there's no legacy that the deputy president can be proud of?
Thank you very much, Fred, and thank you for breathing the mouth of my colleague Bichachi. And I always warn him not to speak when his mouth is full. Now, one of the things that we have to be very sanctity and truthful about is the flawed doctrine of succession. And one of the best examples that we have to look at is when Moi attempted succession, it failed. But when Kibaki brought in the right doctrine, and that is the doctrine of transition, not succession. Because once you speak about succession, you assume that the presidency is a private property. You assume that we are in a monarchy, and therefore power must be transitioned to cronies or through the articles of nepotism. You assume that the people have no say whatsoever, and they are not the ones that pick, that the presidency is decided either in State House or Gatondo. Then you insult Article 10(2). And I want Mark to, he has never maybe touched the Constitution. I want him to read Article 10(2), that when an incumbent transitioning president campaigns for a particular candidate, he violates aspects of equality, he violates aspects of national unity, and he ceases to be the tenant of unity in the country. And not just that, he then becomes the most divisive figure ever, that then the commission that is charged in terms of ensuring that, that politicians are not rogue should start calling out the president. Now, let me state something. Everything that is good that happened in the first term and what was collapsed into the Big Four must be squarely also attributed to the deputy president.
Yes.
He thought it, he worked hard for it, he campaigned hard for it. Mark and his cronies cannot remove that from him. Unfortunately, there was a sabotage when the handshake entered. Look at the kind of hellish road that we have gone through. Look at the management of COVID-19. Look at the management of our economy, even from a personal perspective. Look at the management of healthcare, the management of everything good that Kenyans had aspired at the end of the day. So, Fred, we must be truthful. We are not here to defend those that Mark would defend. We are here to speak the truth to Kenyans and to speak the truth to the strongest men in this country, and that is what integrity is. Okay. We must denounce the flawed doctrine of succession. And we must look at what Kibaki did.
Okay.
The president looks like he's Ghanaian or he's subject to an electoral loss, like he's Ghanaian for a third term. Maybe the death of BBI upset him, but at the end of the day, he needs to sit down, he needs to complete his mandate, he needs to let transitional institutions take charge, and that's the IBC and other tenants that are charged with that. Him campaigning for somebody who has destroyed his government at the end of the day is not something that Kenyans should take lightly. It's an insult to democracy.
I just want to teach Dennis a lesson in truth and read for him the Constitution of Kenya, Article 10(2). The national values and principles of governance include patriotism, national unity, sharing the evolution of power, the rule of law, democracy, participation of the people, human dignity, equity, social justice, inclusiveness, equality, human rights, non-discrimination, protection of the marginalized, good governance, integrity, transparency, and accountability, and sustainable development. If you want to come here and patronize us about the Constitution and patronize us about Article 10(2), please read it yourself. This is not a propaganda machine. Number two, let us be very clear. The deputy president himself, who you claim to defend, spoke about the legacy of President Uhuru Kenyatta. You guys, when you talk about the economy, you want to talk about feelings. There is COVID across the world. Look at Americans complaining about high inflation. Look at the UK. Across the world, you cannot judge the economy based on feelings. Go to the IMF website, do some reading, and stop selling propaganda.
Let me allow Dismas and Hezbon at least a minute each to say something before we go on a break. Dismas?
Now, you know, now we need to go back and ask ourselves very fundamental questions. That when President Kibaki handed over Kenya to the Jubilee administration, 10 years later, can we objectively say that Kenya is a better nation looking at all the metrics in the socioeconomic sphere? That is the only way we can look at the Jubilee administration and say whether it's a success or failure. And as we've said times above number, at a personal level, if you compare when Kibaki handed over Kenya to Jubilee and right now, if your socioeconomic status has changed, you have no reason not to vote for William Samoei Ruto. But if it's gone south, then you have every reason to discipline him. That's number one. Then number two, you've seen the various factions of Jubilee treating us to these catfights. There's been a lot of corruption, and you see now the various factions are competing on when did we have massive corruption? Was it during the first term? Was it during the second term? So it seems that there was a hidden memo issued to the key players in Kenya that steal as much as you can, provided you are not caught. So it's very embarrassing to subject Kenyans to these Jubilee catfights. They're not talking about the interest of Mora or Nafula, but instead they're asking themselves, what happened? You've had people mentioning KEMSA, others mentioning NYS, others mentioning roads, vendor-driven procurement. And this is the kind of administration which has really let Kenya down. And when you look at any metrics, we need to ask ourselves, during the Kibaki time and the Jubilee time, when you look at impunity, mediocrity, and corruption, when did those three vices thrive? Was it during Kibaki? Was it during the Jubilee administration? And there is no way anybody in Kenya would say that President Kenyatta and his deputy have not been running this nation together. Those are the two shareholders. If there are any successes during the last 10 years, both the president and his deputy take credit. If there are any failures, all of them take liability for that. So Dennis cannot come here and say that the deputy president will take credit for successes and is giving failures a wide berth. What is he doing in office? Is he a ghost worker then?
Let's allow Hezbon to have our final word on this before we take a break. Hezbon?
Yeah, Fred, let me just say this, that we live in a democracy, and I've not heard President Uhuru Kenyatta in any of his public forums say that this is my preferred presidential candidate. The freedom that we enjoy in a democracy and the robustness of our democracy is dependent on very intelligible and sustainable political discourse that will help the public understand the critical issues that they need to use to make the choices that they'll make in 2022. And that is exactly what the president is doing. The president is giving us illuminating pointers on the basis upon which we need to make a decision. If the president talks about thieves, he's just telling us, assess all these political candidates and evaluate them on the basis of the track record on the issues that I've mentioned, including stealing of public funds, how they've supported me in the delivery of the Legacy 3. So if Kenyans in their own wisdom assess that and give power to the deputy president, the president shall have done his work of helping the public understand what is of public interest. Okay. And if in their own wisdom they assess the first term of the president and they assess the second term in the post-handshake era and believe that whatever direction or information the president has given us, this is the direction we should take, we cannot blame the president and come up here with big words, doctrines, and all that. It is not a question of doctrine. It is what is in the public domain and what will help the public make informed choices. Okay. If it doesn't work for Tanga Tanga, it is not because of the president. It is because of the issues that the president has raised. If it works for Oka, it is because of those issues. If it doesn't work for Raila, it is because of those issues. So we should not stop. We should stop being jittery and focus on just issues.
Okay. Thank you, Hesbon, for that. Time for us to take a break. And I do appreciate all the feedback coming through on Twitter. And yes, about the panelists and the kind of contribution we are getting. And yes, we are open to criticism anytime. Keep it coming. This is Inside Politics. Let's take a break. After that, we'll be discussing this planned merger between ODM and Jubilee. How will that pan out? After the break.